If you just inherited a house in Colchester, Connecticut, here's the mistake I see almost every family make. They either try to sell it immediately without doing the legal groundwork, or they assume the house needs a full renovation before anyone will buy it. Neither one of those is true. And doing either one can cost you significant dollars. So if you just inherited a property in Colchester and you don't know what to do, this video is exactly what you need. Now, I spent 10 years managing custom home building before I got into real estate. So when I tell you actually what needs fixing in the house, like versus what doesn't, I am telling you from job site knowledge. It's not a sales pitch. I've also spent over 8 years working in the government real estate offices, working in zoning and land use. And that also matters here because inherited property in Connecticut, it has to be run through a legal process. And most people have never had to deal with that process before. So here's the situation you're probably in. Someone close to you passed away. Now you're holding keys to a house in Colchester, and maybe it's a place you grew up in. Maybe it's a property you barely knew existed. And you likely don't know what you're allowed to do with it, if anything, yet. You don't know what it's worth. You don't know if it needs work. And on top of that, you're grieving because someone just passed away. And the last thing you want to do is make an expensive mistake during an already difficult time. Now, nobody hands you a checklist for this. So that's why I'm here, and I'm going to give you one. Now, there are 4 things that you need to handle. In a very specific order, I'm going to walk you through every one of them here in this video. Step 1 is probate court. Nothing can legally happen with the property until you are formally appointed as the executor or the administrator of the estate. Colchester falls under the Wyndham Colchester Probate Court. That's located on Main Street in Willimantic. And a lot of people just assume this is a formality or they can skip it or do it later. It is not. You cannot sell the house. You can't sign a listing agreement. You can't authorize repairs as the legal representative until the court has appointed you. Now, if there's a will, this process definitely moves faster. If there isn't, it's going to take a bit longer, but it is still manageable. You just need to start it now. That is the first step you need to do before you start making any other plans with the house. Step 2 is getting a proper date of death valuation. Now, this is a step most people skip and they regret it later. A date of death valuation establishes what the home was worth on the day the previous owner passed away. That number gives you your tax basis, and here's why that matters. If you sell the house for more than that valuation, the difference between the two is what you potentially owe in capital gains. Now, before you freak out, you do get to deduct the selling costs, like real estate commissions, attorney's fees, and any significant updates you've made to the house. So you typically won't owe taxes. However, without a documented valuation, you are going to be stuck guessing, or worse, the IRS may make assumptions for you, and that usually does not work out in your favor. Now, this is not a Zillow's estimate. It has to be a real defensible number with stats and data, and it protects you financially in a way that most people don't think about until it's too late. Now, step 3 is an honest assessment of the property's actual condition. Now, this is where my construction background comes in. I see family members assume an inherited house in Colchester needs a complete renovation before it can be sold. They're thinking like new kitchen, new bathroom, the works. And in this market, that almost is never the right move. What I look for instead is specific. Right? Is there anything affecting safety or financing, like an aging roof or septic system, knob and tube wiring? Is there clutter and personal belongings that need to be cleared out so buyers can actually see the house? Are there a handful of maybe targeted repairs that need to happen? Not a full remodel, but things that would meaningfully change how buyers perceive the home. So you got to know, Colchester, there are still a lot of older homes on larger lots with older systems. Buyers expect some age in a property, but they do not want to walk into something that feels untouched and overwhelming. Now, there's a real difference between cleanup and significant renovations. And that difference is often tens of thousands of dollars that you do not need to spend. So what we often do, we come in, we can do a walkthrough and a room by room checklist of all the things you have to do to get the house ready to sell without spending unnecessary dollars, but maximizing the amount of money you walk away with in your pocket. Step 4 is deciding what you actually want to do with the house. Do you want to sell it as is? Do you want to do targeted cleanup and repairs first? Or do you want to hold on to it and rent it out? Now, this is where I think like an investor, because I am one. I co-own a real estate development company. So when I look at inherited property, I look at it like any other asset. We're going to look at your options. What are the carrying costs if you hold it? What's the realistic rental number that it could lease for? What's the net number you could sell it for as is versus what you could sell it for with some cleanup? Now, selling as is going to happen the fastest with no out-of-pocket expenses, but usually gets you a lower number. Targeted cleanup, it typically adds some cost and some time. However, it usually nets you way more money at closing. And then renting out can make sense if you have multiple heirs who want ongoing income instead of a lump sum, and if the local market supports it. Now, none of these is essentially the right or wrong answer in general. It's the right answer for you, depending on your specific numbers, your situation, and your timeline, and what the people who inherited the house want to do with it. We can help you with any one of those options. So where does this leave you? Well, let's recap. Step 1, you're going to get appointed through probate court. For Colchester, that's the Wyndham Colchester Probate Court. Nothing can happen legally until that's done. Step 2, you are going to get a proper date of death valuation to protect yourself on taxes. Step 3, you're going to get an honest and specific assessment on the property's condition, not an assumption that it needs a whole renovation. And then number 4, you're going to choose between selling it as is, targeted cleanup, or holding onto it as a rental based on real numbers. Now, always base your decision based on real market analysis numbers. Please don't use a Zillow's estimate or a guess from a family member about what the house is worth. Now, this is exactly the kind of conversation I have every week with families dealing with inherited properties in Hebron, Andover, Marlborough, Colchester, and East Hampton. People who have a house on their hands and a lot of emotion attached to it. And oftentimes they don't know the clear next step. Now, you do not have to figure this out alone, and you don't have to figure it all out today. If this video resembles anything you're going through or resonates with you, if you've inherited a house in Colchester and you want to know what your actual options are, the next best step or the next step is to book a free call with me. There's no pressure, no sales pitch, just a real honest conversation about your situation and what makes sense. Now, the link to book that call is in the description below. I'd love to talk with you. Now, if you found this helpful, please smash that like button. Share this with anyone you think would find this information helpful. And as always, thanks for watching.